Hey guys, so this is part 4 of 1996 by Gloria Naylor. We left off on page 71. The boys are elated. They've won the latest game, and the dumb witch didn't even have a clue. But there was one more fun they could wring out of this operation. They had CJ for another 2 days, so why not make use of him? Any lowlife could steal this computer by simply knocking her down and running off with the bag. They could go one step further, steal and reprogram the computer without her knowing it. For that, the bag would have to be out of her hands for a few hours, and she must never know. CJ would have to help them steal the computer while she was asleep. What if she wakes up? CJ asked them on the phone later that night. That's not our problem. That's not your problem, Paulo tells him. CJ knows that the only way to do what they want is to drug her. He remembers a song from his youth, Limbo Rock, with its recurring line, "How low can you go?" That's what he asks himself now, sitting on the porch with Gloria. It hardens him to see how his visit has started to relax her. She is much less tense than when he first came 2 days ago. If she only knew, he thinks, what a snake I am. Let me get us a drink, he says. There's still another bottle of wine. He gets up and leaves the porch for the kitchen. The sleeping pills are in his pocket. For the last 10 years, he's never been without them. He takes out two and dissolves them in her glass of wine, telling himself that such a low concentration won't be too harmful. She'll just go into a deep sleep, he thinks, a very deep sleep. And then this whole mess will be over. They'll be happy and I'll go back to Princeton. After only a half a glass, he sees that Gloria is so groggy that she can hardly hold her head up. I guess I'd better go to bed, she says. Suddenly, I'm not feeling too good. Just finish up your wine, he tells her, and then we'll both turn in. She drinks the last bit of her wine, gets up from her chair, and stumbles upstairs to bed. CJ takes the two wine glasses and rinses them in the sink. He waits down on the porch for another hour until he's sure that she's under and slips upstairs. The red bag is at the foot of her bed and she's in a deep sleep. Quietly, he lifts the bag and leaves the room. CJ waits on her porch for further instructions as he was told to. He paces up and down, looking at the red bag as though it is a bomb. His fears are groundless, but they threaten to overwhelm him anyway. What if the pills aren't strong enough and she wakes up? What if they take the bag and don't return it? What if, in some god awful way, she finds all of this out? His pacing is interrupted by a shrill whistle. Polo appears as if he melts out of the night. CJ hands him the red bag. When will you be back? CJ asks. A couple of hours. Just wait here. CJ goes upstairs to check on Gloria. She's still in a deep sleep. He returns to the porch to wait. They are tweeting, they are crowing. Ricky even stands on his head. The cause for all of this celebration is sitting on a table, the laptop. They have hours and hours to do anything with her laptop that they wish. They play the game of installing a virus. Tiring of that, they play fragmenting her hard drive. But with all of this, not once do they ever really touch it. It's not in the rules of the game. It has amused them that she was so paranoid she had wrapped the laptop in aluminum foil and folded it in a towel. They didn't need to reprogram her computer in order to hack into it, but the dumb witch obviously thought they did. Before zipping back up the bag, they gently take the edge of the towel and fold it over. There, invasion complete. As for CJ, just let him stew over there. They leave him waiting for hours instead of two, and when they finally return the laptop, he's still on the porch. He's dozed off, but a shrill whistle wakes him. You said 2 hours, CJ grabs the bag from Paulo. Time flies when you're having fun, Paulo says. Listen, you leave tomorrow, but when we need to talk to you before you go. It might be too hard to call you in the daytime, CJ says. No, don't call. We need you over at the plantation house. How am I going to manage that? CJ asks. Smart men like you should be able to figure something out. Just be there. Paulo melts into the night. CJ packs his bags early, readying himself for his trip back to New Jersey. He feels like he's getting out of jail. He hears Gloria in the shower as he goes downstairs to pack up his exam books. He had worked on the side porch while he was visiting. Packing up his exams, he looks over at the plantation house. Now would be the time to do it if it ever was going to get done. He leaves the porch and races across the lawn. He knocks on the back door, which can't be seen from Gloria's house. Chi opens the door. Good morning, Chi says. Sleep well last night? Let's just get this over with. What do you want? CJ asks. That's not friendly, Chi says. Did your mother ever teach you any manners? Keep my goddamn mother out of your mouth. Now, what did you want? Chi calls upstairs for Paulo, who comes sliding down the banister. This is a great house, isn't it? Paulo says. I've always wanted to do that since I saw it in the movies. What do you want? CJ asks, gritting his teeth. We wanted to thank you for making our mission a success. Your government will be indebted to you for years. And we also wanted you to know one thing, how you could stick a knife in a friend's back and keep on smiling. The boys laugh and CJ feels tears starting at the back of his eyes. Target on the move, Ricky calls from upstairs. Uh-oh, it looks like Gloria's on the porch, Paolo says. She must have taken a quick shower this morning. How do you know she was in the shower? CJ asks. Same way we know you didn't say anything you had no business saying, Paolo replies. We've bugged the whole damn house. And we want you to think about this before you go, and maybe your conscience starts bothering you a little. You're to say nothing to no one about what went on here this weekend. Nothing, no one. Because maybe your phone is tapped and maybe it isn't. Maybe your house is bugged and maybe it wasn't. You see, CJ, you'll never know when we might be paying a visit on you. You can go now. If I leave now, she'll see me. Okay, we'll give you a little help. Paolo leads CJ to the back door as he fits an earpiece into his ear. Okay, Paolo said. I'm wired. Where's the target now? Target's still on the porch, Hallam says into Paolo's earpiece. I guess she's wondering where you are, Paolo said, so listen up. When I tell you to run, you get down to that beach and bring up the crab cages that you put out yesterday. Target's left the porch, Hallam says into Paolo's earpiece. Okay. Paolo tells CJ, now run. CJ sprints from the back door. I couldn't find CJ anywhere in the house, and it was time to leave if he wanted to catch his plane in Savannah. His exam books and backpack were on the side porch, but he was nowhere in sight. I doubled back from the kitchen out to the porch again, and then I saw him. He was running from the back of the plantation house and headed full speed for the beach. He was running so fast that he slipped on the slope leading to the water. I didn't have to ask. I knew if he was coming from that plantation house, he was working for them. Then all of the strange behavior during the weekend fell into place. His uneasiness, his disappearance in Savannah, his insistence on carrying my bag, all of it. I felt numb inside. He came back up to the house holding a dripping wet crab cage. He was breathing hard from fear. Look, we got some crabs. Why would you go crabbing in your best clothes? I asked. I just wanted to see what we had, he answered. Leave them outside, I said. It's time to get to the airport. We drove to the airport, mainly in silence, as I thought a lot about friendship. Most of my friends, like myself, were unmarried and childless. Without a spouse or children in the equation, friends took a high priority in our lives. Longevity was important and loyalty was utmost. I was never the type of person to have a whole cater of friends like my sister did. I counted myself lucky to have 2 or 3 close ones. Everyone else I considered an acquaintance. CJ was one I had come to consider a close friend, and that's what made his betrayal devastating. Couldn't he have simply said, "Not this time, another time maybe, another person certainly"? Surely there were some people who would have stayed loyal when the CIA, FBI, or whoever in the hell they were came calling. Surely there were some who had the guts to say, "I'll help you out next time, but not this time." Didn't he know what these people were doing to me? Hadn't I told him, along with the precious few, how hard all of this was on me? Yes, he knew, and he obviously didn't care. I let him off at the Savannah airport without fanfare, drove directly back home, put my head in my hands, and for the first time since the whole ordeal began, I cried. After over 2 months of phone tapping, the boys finally hit something of substance. Naylor woman is going back to New York. They can hardly contain themselves with joy. This is going to be great. They have personal and resources. They have personnel and resources in the city that would make this operation in St. Helena look like the backwoods town that it was. And when they are off duty, there are movies and clubs and concerts, and above all, video games. Stores up the kazoo. Never crosses their mind that Dick Simon might use a new crew for the New York operation. Hadn't he already told them that they were doing a bang up job here in St. Helena? And hadn't he said there was a memo to that effect going into their files? No, if this operation was moving to New York, they were moving with it. Now that they had her on the run, they could keep her running. After the C.J. Hudson affair, it was clear that the woman was a total paranoid. There she was on the phone, talking all over her mouth that he had betrayed her when there was no way that she knew about his involvement. The whole venture had gone down smooth as a baby's behind, and no one could take it from them. Not the slying witch, no one. David Shane sees no reason why the operation should continue in New York. He's composing a memo to send to Dick Simon to that effect. What is considered a threat in this little town pales in comparison to what's available in New York. There, black Muslims practically rule certain neighborhoods, have a force of thousands. There were probably as many anti-Semites in New York as there were Jews. Surely the ADL had bigger fish to fry than this ineffectual woman who spends her time growing tomatoes and trying to read. Trying to read was the operative term since the boys' noise campaign had proven to be a success. Coupling that with cars and drive-bys, she had practically become a prisoner in her own home. That might prove to be difficult to execute in a large city. There are always noises that city people simply didn't hear: honking horns, loud arguments, crying babies, or if they hear it, they condition themselves to it. No, he'll tell Dick Simon that the St. Helena operation can call itself a success. Community participation was high and spirited. The target was moving on, and so should they. Sometimes Dick Simon can't sleep at night. Sometimes he fears his dreams. The one he calls the slippery slope is the worst. He's on a high mountain, and instead of snow, there is smoke. A whole mountain covered with smoke. He starts to slip and slip and slip, but there's no bottom. The bottom is always a few feet down, a few feet down, and a few feet down as he slides toward it. The bottom is always waiting. He wakes up in a cold sweat with his mouth feeling like it's full of cotton. When he goes into the bathroom for a drink of water, sometimes his hands are shaking so badly the water spills out. Tonight is such a night. He has had the slippery slope dream, and he can still feel his heart pounding as he lies awake in bed. Usually he can pinpoint the origin of the dream by something that has happened at work. But things were going smoothly there. He is the kind of man that makes little decisions with the same precision that he makes big ones. Preparing a report for the Senate Committee on Intelligence takes on the same import as hiring a new secretary from the typing pool. But tonight the dream has its origin not in the decisions that he's made yesterday, but in the one he hadn't. What to do about the Naylor surveillance? 2 memos had come across his desk almost within hours of each other. One from David Shane, his field coordinator in St. Helena, and the other from the boys. Each took the same basic facts, the success of St. Helena operation, and spun them off into 2 opposing directions. Shane wanted to go, the boys wanted to stay. What Dick Simon wants is for Gloria Naylor to just go burn in hell. He's feeling a growing hatred for this woman who has now even invaded his dreams. Hating her is easier than hating himself for letting her matter. She's nothing, he keeps telling himself, absolutely nothing. And yet here she is, on his mind, in his house. The boys call her a witch, and they're right. But are they also right about moving the operation to New York City? Brooklyn, wasn't it? Trust her to be in one of the most exciting cities in the world and to pick a nowhere place like Brooklyn to live. And nobody living nowhere. It was a repeat of St. Helena. What wouldn't be a repeat was that botched hacking job and a botched surveillance. Dick Simon knows that the success both memos spoke of were only byproducts of the target peeling away the cover of the operation. She knew that her computer was accessed, and she knew that she was being followed. It was bothering the hell out of her, and yet there was nothing she could do about it since she could never prove it. So she was going to run back home to New York. Should they follow? Swim. New York, their resources were almost unlimited. He was going to give the boys full reign on this one. They were right. If she's on the run, keep her on the run. When she sees there's nowhere left to go, they wouldn't have to crush her. She'd crumble on her own. David Shane won't move the operation to New York. After 2 months, he has had his fill of what he privately thinks of as pettiness of the whole thing. This woman is no threat to Jews or anyone else. What the boys thought of as fun, taking bets on the time it takes her to urinate in the morning, he found demeaning to them all. New York wasn't going to bring them any more information than they already had. She lives privately and she is intelligent and observant. She had stumbled onto those files, nothing else. There was no secret network out there helping her. If they could open their minds, they'd see it just that way. This operation had lost its point, if it ever really had one. When he was with the Mossad and dealing with the Hezbollah, he knew that the intelligence gathered could help to stop a suicide bombing or missile attack. But what did the intelligence on the Naylor woman lead to? Nothing. Absolutely nothing except certain facts about her life. It was a harmless life. So it leaves you with nothing to document except how long it takes her to weed her garden or to go to the supermarket or what radio program she listens to. There it was spread out before you, a woman living her life, nothing more, nothing less. Where do you go from there? Well, you disrupt that life. She's bothered by the cars driving by, so you increase them. She's bothered by the noise, so you intensify it. At least that's the objective. It was a success. She's leaving the island. To David Shane, it's time to call it a day. His memo to that effect had been overruled by Dick Simon. Shane was furious that the boys had gone over his head and sent their own memo to Simon. Since when did children call the shots in an operation? And they were nothing but children, thinking of this whole thing as a game. Only a part of him admits that they are right. This has turned into a game since there is definitely no serious work afoot. The question for him is whether he wants to keep playing. He doesn't. He wants to go back to his own life in Virginia, to his home and his wife, to his airplane collection, to his simple walks in the woods with his dog. Neither operation had brought him the realization, if nothing else, a private life and a precious thing that can be easily taken away. The boys are glad that David Shane won't be a part of the operation in New York. He could be such a wet blanket. Don't do this, don't do that. Get your reports in on time. Stay in the house at night. Who did he think he was? Their damn father. They had gone out each night to circles the Naylor house because she belonged to them. Asleep or awake, they had her surrounded. Couldn't he see the fun in that? Well, now it didn't matter if he could or couldn't. He was history. He was replacement as a field commander as Patrick Sullivan, and the boys find that to be more good news. Hallam had worked with Sullivan on another assignment last summer, and he assures the others that Sullivan would be putty in their hands. Sullivan is scared shitless of Dick Simon shitless. Since the boys were handpicked by Simon, Sullivan would think twice before he even breathed on them. Patience was all he had. A little patience and good work on his backwoods island. Now they were on the top of the world, New York. They hoped the witch would change her mind and decide to stay, but they doubted it, since she'd already made the plane reservations. It would be flying the friendly skies right along with her, an operative on each side of her, one in front and one in behind. Now, this is what undercover work should be: a little action, a little movement. Agents had already been sent out to secure a safe house and hopefully houses on her block in Brooklyn. The boys want coverage in the front and back, so that necessitated getting into a house on the street behind her as well. When she went out the front door, they would be there. When she went out the back door to sit in her yard, they would be there. If she walked, if she ran, if she stuck her head in the sand, the boys would sing, "We will be there." Since she was so fat and out of shape, they doubted that there would be any running. The most you could expect from her was a walk in the prospective park. But they would be there. It would be a great summer, filled with all types of possibilities. I was packed and ready to go, but I wanted to take one last look at my garden and pictures, of course. But pictures don't capture the fresh smell of the soil, the sweetness of the grass, the pungency of the sun's heat on a row of tomatoes. Call it beginner's luck, but it had flourished into a spectacular garden. Every plant was huge and lush. As I sat on the garden bench, the hammering began from the plantation house. You can stop soon, I thought, because I'll be gone. I simply couldn't take it anymore. I definitely was not writing. Most of my waking moments were spent thinking about the surveillance, the drive-bys, and the noise. It was that funny thing about the noise. I grew up in New York City and had probably written through more noise than they were able to create, but here it seemed magnified. This book was important to me, and if I had to move back to New York to write it, I would move back. My family and my friends would be glad. They had kept telling me to come home, just come home, leave all the nonsense there behind you. But I wasn't sure I would be leaving it. What bothered me the most about this whole ordeal was thinking about the hidden hand behind all of it. It took a sick mind to coordinate all this, a sick mind that had turned its attention to my life. Why should I believe that this person was willing to let me go? Fighting him had been like fighting the air. You couldn't see it unless it's full of dust, and if it's full of dust, your eyes burn and sting, so you still can't see it. And then just as it comes, it goes, almost invisible, like the letters they had written one night on the dust in my porch screen. KOB. The letters were almost invisible until the sun rays hit it on an angle. What was KOB supposed to mean? Maybe everything, maybe nothing. But the letters floated there, a ghostly barrier between me on the porch swing and my view of the water. That's what the whole experience had been like from the beginning. A ghostly presence between me and my enjoyment of the garden, me and the long Sunday drive, me and my friends I used to hold dear. And I was angry at this hidden hand because I had to leave. Did I hate them because of what they'd done to me? Of course. I had asked for so little when I first came to St. Helena in 1996, to be able to enjoy the fruits of my life in peace and quiet. No, it wasn't asking for little, it was asking for less than nothing. Person becomes bitter who has asked for less than nothing and gets even that taken away. What are the depths of anger and hatred when this happens? Deep. Even though you know that you can't afford to wallow in it, even though you've learned through a lifetime of experience that some things need to be shoved aside if you're going to go on. You were changed by an experience like mine. I would no longer look at this country with the same innocence as before, would no longer trust bonds of friendship to be unshakable. I heaved a deep sigh and got up from the bench. I had told Betty to please use the harvest from my garden. At least someone else could enjoy what I could not. With the sound of the hammering and the clawing of crows ringing in my ear, and the cawing of crows ringing in my ears, I loaded my bags into my truck and drove away. In Brooklyn, the Swiss family is finishing up dinner when the doorbells ring. Two men are there who identify themselves as agents for the Drug Enforcement Agency, carrying badges to testify as such. Could they have a few minutes of their time? The men are invited in and offered seats. Taller one's eyes are restless and take in the full spectrum of the room. The bald one sits on the edge of his chair, gesturing with his hands as he talks. Tomorrow they may be FBI agents or CIA, but tonight they are DEA, and they tell the Swiss family they are in a position to do their country a service. They have reason to believe that their neighbor, Gloria Naylor, is involved on a high level with drug smuggling from Colombia. No, they can't say much more than that for reasons of national security. They are coming to the Swiss family for help. Monty is only too glad to oblige. He knew there was something funny going on in that duplex next to hers. She said she was a writer, but how many writers can afford condos like theirs? Then there were her neighbors, as strange as could be, and mostly black. Montgomery Swiss is also black, but his blackness begins and ends with his skin color. He was raised by grandparents who, in effect, taught him to hate himself. It's a white man's world. His grandfather never lost an opportunity to tell him, and you gotta learn to play by their rules, to live like they live. Monty did not disappoint his grandparents. He enrolled at Harvard, took up a business administration, and married the only white woman on campus who would have him. Cleo, with her chunky body and plain face, was glad to be chosen. Their marriage produced one daughter who Monty was relieved to see had fair skin and blonde hair. They never tried for a second child. Monty thought he'd better leave well enough alone. The second child might look like him with caramel skin, a pug nose, and full lips. His short, stocky legs and feet barely touch the floor when he sits in a chair. So he has the habit, like the bald agent in his living room, of sitting on the edge of the furniture. He would do anything needed, the agents were told, if it would help bring her to justice, anything at all. During the whole conversation, Cleo said nothing. Maybe you'll need to talk this over as a family, the taller agent says directly to Cleo. Monty answers for her. There's no need to talk over anything. Of course, we'll help our government. Well, the ball agent tells them, well, we'll need to set up your place as a safe house from which we can carry on part of the surveillance. There's a limited amount of equipment needed, and there'll be agents coming and going. Will that pose a problem? None at all, Monty assures them. Cleo says nothing. And of course, the taller agent continues. You'll be compensated for your trouble. There'll be a per diem for each day we use your spare room. How do you know we have a spare room? Cleo finally speaks. Ma'am, how do you know we have a spare room? None of that information came up in our conversation. We have a layout of all these condos, the bald agent says. And since you have 3 bedrooms and only one child, I'd assume. And how do you know we have only one child? Cleo asks. That's enough, Cleo, Monty says. No, we don't mind answering, the taller agent says. To be brutally honest with you, Miss Swiss, we've done background checks of all the people in this block who we thought might be in position to help us. What kind of organization would we be if we did not? Of course, Monty says. For all you knew, we might be the drug smugglers ourselves. I'm glad you checked. We turned to Cleo. He turns to Cleo with his teeth gritted. It's just procedure, sweetheart. Money agrees for the agents to start bringing in their equipment the next day. The Swiss family is reminded that they must talk to no one, absolutely no one, about what is going on. When the other agents arrive, they would try to stay out of the family's way as much as possible. The field coordinator, Patrick Sullivan, would be coming to introduce himself, and if there was a problem with any of the agents in their home, he would be the one to handle it. Any other questions? Monty says he has none. And Cleo sighs as she looks down at her hands folded in her lap. There are two conversations that go on once the door is closed. On the outside, the taller agent raises his eyebrow. Eager little puppy, wasn't he? The type always gives me the creeps, the bald agent says. And did you get a load of his wife, of that wife of his? Not a happy camper. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that house now. If he had been a fly, he would have been disappointed. Cleo has little to say as Monty goes on and on about what a great opportunity this is. Her silence says it all. She's not comfortable with such an arrangement. There was something about those men that just didn't ring true. It would probably be a lot better if they just didn't get involved. But she lets Monty go on and on because she always lets Monty go on and on, he's telling her, even as they undress for bed. That's what's wrong with this country. Not enough people thought of themselves as citizens. Citizens had a civic duty to aid their government when in need. The little inconvenience was nothing compared to the good they would be doing in bringing a criminal to justice. As Cleo falls off to sleep, she knows that Monty knows that Gloria Naylor is not a drug smuggler. Whatever that visit had been about, it wasn't about that. Carol, where Gloria Naylor lives, is a quiet tree-lined street in Park Slope. It's full of nothing but brownstones that are at least 100 years old. Traffic is rare because it's 2 blocks away from 7th Avenue, the main commercial strip for the neighborhood. The boys are pleased with the setup. They have a rental apartment directly across the street from the Naylor woman and a safe house with the Swiss family right next door to her. One street over, they have another rental that will give them a view of her backyard. Her brownstone, like the Swiss family's, is a duplex. They both have the first and second floor with privileges to the backyard space. Once they've known the move was certain, they placed their bugs in each room of the Naylor condo. Patrick Sullivan, the new field coordinator, thought a bug in each room was excessive, but the boys disagreed. What if she didn't talk over the phone and invites a friend for a private chat? They would need to know what was said, wouldn't they? Besides, Dick Simon would want it that way. That's all they had to say for Sullivan to be Ben. Dick Simon's name was like magic. Presto, changeo, Hallam murmured whenever they got Sullivan to change his mind by evoking Dick Simon's name. The noise would continue. They know that her sturdy face, Carol, and her bedroom is in the back of the condo. Paula comes up with the idea of having car doors slamming when she is trying to read or write in her study. Their continued alliance with the ADL in a city like New York will give more manpower than when they could dream of. Paula's idea, like all good ideas, is simple. They would pull one of their cars into the space under her study window, have the driver get out and slam the front door, reach into the back seat of the car for a package, and then slam the door too. The driver would take a walk around the block, come back to the car. slam the doors again, and drive off. Within minutes, the next car would pull up into the empty space, and the whole scenario would repeat. Slam, 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 slam. Just a little welcome gift for the witch. And just how long will you keep this nonsense up? Patrick Sullivan asked. Until we get tired, Paulo answers. And we want to go on to another game because what's it to you anyway? Because I'm the one in charge here, that's what. Look, Patrick, Dick Simon told me himself that our St. Helena noise campaign was a stroke of genius and it put the target on the run. Paulo says, now if you want to come up with a better idea, do it. I have lots of ideas for this operation. Pray tell, Ricky says. Tweet, she says. Tweet, tweet, Ricky answers. No, guys, we're in the Big Apple now. It's time to crow. Paulo says, caw, 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 caw. The other boys answer back. When you're ready to talk sensibly, Patrick Sullivan says, I'll listen. Until then, I don't give a damn what you do. Sullivan leaves the room, slamming the door behind him. Presto, changeo, Paulo says. The other boys laugh. All right, guys, so that leaves us on page 90. So we got 20 more pages thereabouts. And that's the end of the section, so I'm going to stop there. So we'll pick up tomorrow on the next part.